Look at this flag. Look at these soldiers. This is a sacred ritual. It's a promise made to every American who wears the uniform. A promise that if they fall, their sacrifice meant something, that it was for the defense of this nation, for our Constitution, for American freedom. Now, I want you to ask yourself a question. A question so deeply uncomfortable, so profoundly disturbing, that it feels like a betrayal just to think it. What if that promise was broken? What if the flag-draped coffins returning to Dover Air Force Base? What if the lives they contained were not sacrificed for American freedom? What if they were sacrificed for a foreign agenda? Because I've spent years digging through the official documents, the think tank reports, the political speeches, and I am here to tell you that the path to America's next war, a catastrophic war with Iran, has been paved with lies. The first is reports from the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. The second and more dramatic piece is the nuclear archive, a treasure trove of documents supposedly stolen by Israeli commandos in a daring raid on a Tehran warehouse. This archive, we are told, is the smoking gun, the undeniable proof of Iran's plan to build 5 nuclear weapons, and the architect of that path is not in Tehran. It's the action of a hostage-taker whose negotiator has walked away from the table. They're raising the stakes, creating a crisis, screaming for attention, trying to force America back to the table. It is not a weapons program, it is a bargaining chip program born of desperation. This isn't an excuse for their regime, it's an explanation of their behavior. An explanation our leaders deliberately ignore, because when you stop being entertained and start being critical, the story falls apart. Let's start with that archive. It was unveiled to the world by Israel in April 2018. Pay attention to the timing, a mix of old, publicly known information and potentially fabricated documents, all packaged to sell a single narrative: Iran cannot be trusted. But they leave out the most important part of the story, why they're doing it. For years under the nuclear deal, their enrichment was capped at 3.67%. They only started ramping up after America broke the deal and reimposed crippling sanctions. This was just weeks before President Trump had to decide whether to pull the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal. It was a perfectly timed media spectacle designed to achieve a specific political outcome. An agenda crafted thousands of miles away in the halls of power of another nation, an ally who has mastered the art of making American boys die for their strategic interests. You'd be laughed out of court, yet in the court of public opinion, our media presented this evidence as gospel. They never asked the hard questions. Why did this archive, supposedly containing information from before 2003, surface only in 2018? Why has no other independent intelligence agency been allowed to fully verify its contents? I will show you how the evidence for war is a fabrication, how the opportunities for peace were deliberately sabotaged, and who precisely benefits from sending America into another trillion-dollar conflict. That question is not treason. Asking that question is the most patriotic act an American can engage in today. What I'm about to show you will make you angry. For Iran, the story is the secret nuclear bomb. It's the monster under the bed, the justification for everything. We are told relentlessly by our media and our politicians that Iran is a nation of religious fanatics, months away from getting a nuclear weapon to wipe Israel and then America off the map. It's a terrifying story. And it's designed to be. It will challenge everything you've been taught to believe about America's role in the world. But you deserve to know the truth, because it is your money that will fund this war, and it is your children who will be asked to fight it. For the next 80 minutes, I am going to unravel this entire narrative. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a presentation of facts that have been hidden in plain sight. Every war begins with a story. For Iraq, it was weapons of mass destruction. The proof for this story always comes back to 2 key pieces of so-called evidence. It's a story worthy of a Hollywood movie, and that's the first red flag. Imagine a murder trial where the prosecutor's star evidence was provided exclusively by the victim's sworn enemy who has a documented history of trying to frame the defendant. The reality is this archive is most likely a brilliantly executed piece of propaganda. And what about Iran's nuclear enrichment? They enrich uranium to 60% and the media screams that's almost weapons grade. And they rewrite, think of it this way, it's not the action of a secret bomb maker. It's the action of a hostage taker whose negotiator has walked away from the table. They're raising the stakes, creating a crisis, screaming for attention, trying to force America back to the table. It was called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. It is not a weapons program, it is a bargaining chip program born of desperation. It wasn't a perfect deal because no deal is. The critics, many of them funded by the very same interests pushing for war, screamed about sunset clauses, the fact that some restrictions would expire in 10, 15 or 25 years. This isn't an excuse for their regime, it's an explanation of their behavior, an explanation our leaders deliberately ignore. And then acted shocked and appalled when Iran started building a fortress on the other side. We created the very crisis we now claim we must solve with military force. It wasn't a mistake, it was intentional. It was the necessary step to put war back on the table, because it might catch fire again in 15 years. The deal worked. It blocked every single pathway Iran had to a nuclear weapon. The why would America deliberately sabotage a peace deal that was working? We must talk about the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee (AIPAC). We must talk about the network of hawkish think tanks, like the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, whose primary mission seems to be lobbying for policies that align perfectly with the national interests of the Israeli Likud Party. Why would we choose a path that isolates us from our allies and pushes us toward a devastating war? It put their program in a box under lock and key, with international inspectors as the guards. Even our own intelligence community and Israeli intelligence admitted that Iran was complying with the deal. The most tragic part of this story is that we had a solution. We had an off-ramp from this highway to war. It was not based on trust. It was based on the most intrusive verification and inspections regime ever negotiated. But this criticism was fundamentally dishonest. It is like refusing to put out a fire in your house today. It was a self-inflicted wound that has bled America's credibility and security ever since. By tearing up that deal, we didn't just break our word. We sent a clear message to the world. America's signature is worthless. We signaled to North Korea and every other nation that there is no point in negotiating with the United States, because we will eventually break the deal. The only true guarantee of your security, we told them, is to get a nuclear weapon of your own as fast as you can. We had achieved peace through diplomacy. We had defanged the threat without firing a single shot. And then in 2018, America, under immense pressure from the war lobby and the Israeli government, did the unthinkable. We walked away. This was not an act of strength, it was an act of monumental strategic stupidity. We didn't just walk away from the deal, we lit the bridge on fire, shot the messenger. This brings us to the core of it all. To answer that, you have to follow the money and the influence, and when you do, all roads lead to the same place. For decades, the Israeli government has viewed Iran as its primary regional rival. A nuclear-armed Iran is for them an existential threat. Regime change in Iran has been their number one foreign policy objective for over 20 years, but Israel lacks the military capacity to achieve this on its own. It needs a bigger, more powerful ally to do the job for them. It needs America. And so a decades-long influence campaign was launched. It has been wildly successful. It has created a reality where it is nearly impossible for an American politician to be critical of Israeli policy and survive. They have fused their national interest with ours in the minds of our leaders. The moment you raise this point, a very powerful shield goes up. The charge of anti-Semitism is deployed to shut down all debate. Let me be unequivocally clear. This is not about the Jewish people or the faith of Judaism. This is about the political actions of a specific foreign government and its powerful lobby in America to question whether the policies of the Israeli government are in the best interest of the United States is not anti-Semitic, it is a patriotic duty. The result is that we now live in a bizarre reality where the tail wags the dog. American foreign policy in the most volatile region on earth is not being designed in Washington for the benefit of Americans. It is being heavily influenced and I would argue at times dictated by the strategic goals of a foreign power, and the JCPOA was the single biggest obstacle to their goal of war, so it had to be destroyed. They needed America unchained, angry and ready for a fight, and they got exactly what they wanted. This deliberate march toward war with Iran is not an isolated event. It is the symptom of a much deeper disease. It is the result of a fundamental choice America has made about its identity. For the last 75 years, we have chosen to be a global empire. The path of empire tells us that our safety depends on controlling the entire planet. And veterans who fought for that empire sleeping on the very streets they swore to protect. We have spent trillions building nations in the sands of Iraq and Afghanistan while our own nation crumbles from within. It says that a nation's strength is not measured by how many foreign countries it can bomb, but by the prosperity, freedom, and happiness of its own people. Imagine a research and development budget that cured cancer and Alzheimer's. Imagine tuition-free colleges for every qualified student. Imagine a nation so advanced, so just, so prosperous that the world looks on in admiration, not in fear. It's a vision where we lead not by the force of our arms, but by the power of our example. The path of empire is a path of national suicide. It is bleeding us dry. It tells us we must be the world's policemen, that we must have military dominance in every region. A path that has been forgotten, buried under decades of war propaganda. It is the path our founders intended for us. It is the path of a republic, and what has this empire brought us here at home? Look around! George Washington, in his farewell address, warned us against entangling alliances and foreign adventures. He knew that the moment we became an empire abroad, we would cease to be a republic at home. We are living in the reality he feared, this war with Iran. It is the empire's next project, and it may be the one that finally breaks us. We have bridges that are collapsing, a water system in Flint that is still poisoned, a healthcare system that is a global punchline, but there is another path. The path of a republic says that America's primary duty is to its own citizens. Imagine for a moment if that $8 trillion had been spent here. Imagine a high-speed rail network connecting our great cities. This is not a pipe dream. This is the promise of a republic. So this is where we stand, on the brink of a new war. A war based on a lie about nuclear weapons. A war made possible by the deliberate sabotage of a peace deal. A war pushed by a foreign government and its incredibly powerful lobby. A war that will serve the interests of the empire while delivering another devastating blow to the republic. I have laid out the case. I've shown you the motives, the methods, and the stakes. Now you have a choice. You can continue to believe the story they sell you on television every night. You can dismiss everything I've said as a conspiracy theory. Ask them one simple question. Can you tell me, without referencing the interests of any other nation, how a war with Iran benefits the United States of America? Watch them squirm. Watch them give you talking points written by IPAC. You can close your browser and go on with your day, comfortable in the old reality. It is infected with a militarism that has become a religion, and it is being driven by interests that are not our own. Not the America of the empire, but the America we were always meant to be. Or you can accept the uncomfortable truth. You can open your eyes to the way the world actually works. This is not entertainment. This is an intervention. Our nation is sick. You can send this video to 5 people you know, your family, your friends, your co-workers. have the uncomfortable conversations, argue about it, debate it, demand a government that prioritizes our cities over foreign capitals, demand that we use our national treasure to build up our own country, not to tear down someone else's. What can you do? You can start by refusing to be silent. Call your representative, call your senator. It is time we ensured that not one more American life is sacrificed on the altar of a foreign agenda. Demand an America that serves Americans. The fight to reclaim our country from the clutches of the war machine. The fight to choose the republic over the empire. This is the fight of our lifetime. The flag on that coffin is supposed to mean something. It is supposed to mean everything. It's time we reclaimed its meaning. It is time to choose. Choose the republic. Choose peace. Choose America.